In the last video I made, I talked briefly about the Mario Kart World video game that's coming out for the Switch 2, along with Donkey Kong Bonanza and Kirby Air Riders. I didn't really get a chance to talk about the Zelda titles that were being remastered and re-released on the Switch 2, and I think that's actually a big deal that Nintendo is re-releasing those two games on their next gen game console because even though like the Switch 2 is supposed to be backwards compatible, I feel like they have to, remaster both games. And I saw the gameplay trailer for the remastered editions of Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, and honestly, it looks way better by leaps and bounds. Like you look at the background like for each games of the open world, and it's way more detailed, and it doesn't surprise me because Switch 2 is supposed to be as powerful as the PlayStation 4. And I'm not exactly sure how much both games will cost or anything like that. I'm not even sure when they're supposed to come out, but I do feel it's something that a lot of Switch 2 um, owners or people who are going to buy the Switch 2, it's something that they're definitely going to want to check out. And there's something that they're going to want to purchase if they have the money to do so, because the price for the Switch 2 is something that has been a major talking point among the gaming community as of late, because a lot of people are kind of irate, to say the very least, that the Switch 2 is supposed to be like $450, and if you decide to get the bundle with Mario Kart World, it's like $500 or whatever. And I think the Mario Kart World game by itself is supposed to be somewhere around the ballpark of $80. And I think that was something that a lot of people were a bit upset about. But, the economy is, it's not good, and it's been getting worse for the past several years. So it shouldn't be that much of a surprise to anyone. But as far as these two Zelda games being remastered and re released for the Switch 2 was going to happen at some point, and I'm glad that Nintendo got right on that. And the only thing I'll say is I feel like they should have saved Tears of the Kingdom for the Switch 2, because that could have been something that would have gotten a lot of people to buy the game. Because I remember when the original Switch console came out back in 2017, I think it came out on the launch day of the Switch console, and honestly, between that and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the Switch console was a massive success. But I think my question is, what major Zelda game are we going to get for, the Switch 2? And I'm not talking about like the Hyrule game that was, announced or whatever. I'm talking about like, major installment. Are we going to get a major like Zelda, installment for the Switch 2? Because I kind of feel like it's a similar situation with the Wii console, how they had like I think they had Skyward Sword, and they had the game from 2006. I believe it was damn it, I can't remember it off the top of my head. But but yeah, it's like the game from 2006 and the game from 2011 both came out on the Wii console. And by the time they got to Wii U, I don't think there was any like major Zelda titles or anything like that to help it do well in terms of sales. And because of that, coupled with the fact that the Wii U was more expensive than the Wii console, it was one of the reasons why that console ended up being a massive. I wouldn't say a massive failure, but it ended up, being a flop compared to the Wii console. Not to say that the Wii U console was bad or anything like that. It's just that I don't think there was any major titles to help the Wii U sell as much as it could have, aside from Mario Kart 8. And I feel like to I feel like similar to the Wii U, like Mario Kart World is going to end up being the best selling game for the Switch 2. And because of that, I feel like I feel like there might be Honestly, I wouldn't even say that because of like the cost of this game. I could say this, at least when original Mario Kart 8 came out, it was affordable. At least when Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out, it was affordable. I can't say the same about Mario Kart World. And and I know at some point we're going to get another major like, platform Mario game for the Switch too. But but yeah, I mean, I look at like the Wii U and I look at Super Mario 3D World, which was multiplayer and all that, but it didn't surpass Mario Kart 8 in terms of overall sales. So I'm hoping that Nintendo comes out with a sequel to Super Mario Odyssey or something to follow that in terms of gameplay sometime in the future. But but yeah, like I feel like for the most part, these two Zelda games, well, at least one of them should have been saved for the Switch too. But I do feel like, I think it's at a point now where people this could potentially work against Nintendo because some people would rather just get the original versions of the game opposed to the Switch 2 versions, even though they're better detailed and they have brighter resolution and all that other stuff. But but yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the two Zelda games coming to the Switch too. And again, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to be priced at, but hopefully it's something reasonable considering the fact that they're games that have already, been out for quite some time and they're just giving us a better like looking version of both games. But but yeah, as far as the Hyrule game is concerned, that looked like that might end up being more of a spin-off than anything, and I don't think it's gonna be something that, draws major intrigue within the gaming community or anything like that. I'm not saying it's not gonna be interesting or anything like that, but a lot of people would prefer another, Zelda game opposed to a spin-off game like Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. That's just me. And we're supposed to be getting a Switch 2 edition of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which came out a few years ago. So it's good to know that Nintendo is right on, just trying to get, some of their more recent games on the Switch too and get remastered versions of it, opposed to just being lazy and just telling you to buy the original game and, just for the Switch 2 or whatever. But it's kind of hard to tell how well, these games are going to do on the Switch 2. It's going to be difficult to tell whether or not the Switch 2 is going to end up surpassing the Switch console. I might need a couple of years to kind of to make a prediction on that or whatever, or to I don't know to I guess give some type of expectation on what's going to happen with the Switch 2 and how well it's going to do. But but yeah, I feel like all these games and all these games appearing on the Switch too, it's honestly it's a big deal. And I do feel like 2025 is going to be one of the better years that Nintendo have because we have these games, we have Metroid Prime 4, coming out as well. And yeah, I expect the Switch 2 to actually sell out like crazy, despite the fact that it's expensive. Because the PlayStation 5 was really expensive when it came out, and it got to a point where pre-orders were so high, or there were so many people pre-ordering the PlayStation 5, and so many people lining up outside of retailers to buy the PS5 to a point where stores were running out of PS5s, and we had to wait for shipments and all that stuff to come in, and I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be similar with the Switch 2 or anything like that. So I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens over time.